You weren't born just to clock in, pay bills, and count down to Friday. You were meant to create, grow, and wake up excited about your life. Find and do work you love. Paycheck to Purpose: How to Find and Do Work You Love. Before we dive in, hit like and subscribe if you enjoy the books I publish here. Comment where you're listening from, and the time there, it's always cool to see. Now, listen, grow, and hopefully you fall asleep. Chapter 1: The Great Career Deception. 8 years ago, I received what would become the worst career advice of my life. A well-meaning friend looked me straight in the eye and said, "Don't worry about how much you enjoy your current work. Focus on building your resume. That's what really matters." I had just returned from a transformative period living in Spain, my mind buzzing with possibilities and my heart full of ambition. Landing a position at a Fortune 500 company felt like winning the career lottery. I walked through those gleaming corporate corridors, convinced I was about to make a meaningful impact on the world. But here's what most people don't understand about the modern workplace crisis. Within 2 months, I found myself experiencing something that millions of professionals face daily but rarely discuss openly. Every morning around 10 a.m., I developed an almost irresistible urge to slam my head through my computer monitor. The real secret isn't what you think, though. This wasn't just personal frustration or a bad cultural fit. I had stumbled into a systemic problem that affects the vast majority of working adults across every industry and income level. I discovered that our competitors had already automated my entire job function, rendering my role essentially meaningless. This revelation coincided perfectly with that sage advice about resume building. As I contemplated which second-story window might provide the most dramatic exit from my corporate prison, I encountered a completely different perspective from Warren Buffett. His words cut through the conventional wisdom like a sword through silk. Taking jobs to build up your resume is the same as saving up sex for old age. That single quote became my liberation manifesto. Within 2 weeks, I had resigned from my prestigious position with one clear intention: to find work that I could genuinely care about, something where I could make a real difference, even if I failed spectacularly in the process. The historical context of this career crisis reveals disturbing patterns that extend far beyond individual dissatisfaction. The concept of career, as we understand it today, is remarkably recent in human history. Before the Industrial Revolution, most people worked in family trades, agriculture, or crafts that directly connected their daily efforts to tangible outcomes and community needs. Yet, the assembly line mentality introduced by Henry Ford in 1913 fundamentally altered humanity's relationship with work. Ford's innovation increased efficiency, but simultaneously disconnected workers from the meaning and purpose of their labor. This mechanization of human effort created unprecedented productivity while systematically destroying the intrinsic satisfaction that comes from meaningful work. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The post-World War II economic boom created an entire generation that equated job security with life success. The organization man, as sociologist William H. White described in his 1956 book, became the cultural ideal. Loyalty to large corporations, climbing predetermined career ladders, and deferring personal fulfillment for financial security became the accepted path to the American dream. But there's one crucial principle that changes everything about how we understand modern career dissatisfaction. The very system that promised security and prosperity has systematically eliminated the elements that make work psychologically rewarding: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. As researcher Daniel Pink identified in his groundbreaking studies on motivation. Deloitte's comprehensive workplace studies reveal a staggering reality that most people prefer to ignore. Over 80% of professionals report feeling disengaged from their work. This isn't just about having a bad day or temporary job stress. We're talking about the majority of the working population spending the majority of their waking hours in a state of quiet desperation. The economic implications are staggering. Gallup's research indicates that disengaged employees cost the US economy between $450 and $550 billion annually in lost productivity. This figure doesn't account for the personal costs. Increased stress-related illness, relationship strain, depression, and the profound sense of wasted potential that accompanies spending decades in unfulfilling work. Consider the case of a 34-year-old marketing manager at a pharmaceutical company. Despite earning a six-figure salary and receiving regular promotions, she described her daily experience as slowly dying inside. Her work involved creating campaigns for medications she didn't believe in, targeting demographics she didn't understand, for a company whose values contradicted her personal beliefs. This story represents millions of professionals trapped in what I call the golden handcuffs syndrome. The financial obligations, lifestyle expectations, and social pressures create a prison of comfort that becomes increasingly difficult to escape as time passes. Another compelling example involves a 28-year-old software engineer who discovered that his innovative code was being used to optimize advertising algorithms that manipulated vulnerable populations. Despite his technical brilliance and substantial compensation, he experienced what psychologists term moral injury, the psychological damage that occurs when we're forced to act against our fundamental values. The advanced strategy that separates those who break free from those who remain trapped involves understanding that career dissatisfaction isn't a personal failing or character weakness. It's a predictable outcome of a system designed to prioritize efficiency and profit over human fulfillment and meaning. The framework for understanding this crisis involves recognizing three fundamental disconnections in modern work culture. First, the disconnection between effort and outcome, where individual contributions become invisible within massive organizational structures. Second, the disconnection between personal values and organizational mission, creating daily ethical conflicts that erode psychological well-being. Third, the disconnection between natural human rhythms and artificial productivity demands that ignore our biological and psychological needs. But the most powerful technique is still coming. The solution to this widespread career crisis doesn't require abandoning financial responsibility or pursuing unrealistic fantasies. It involves developing what I call purpose intelligence, the ability to identify and create meaningful work within any context or constraint. The final piece that ties it all together is this understanding. The current career crisis represents both the greatest challenge and the greatest opportunity of our generation. For the first time in human history, we have the tools, technology, and economic freedom to create work that aligns with our deepest values and highest aspirations. The question isn't whether meaningful work is possible, it's whether we have the courage to pursue it. Chapter 2, The 80% Problem. As I began investigating this epidemic of workplace dissatisfaction, I discovered something that fundamentally changed my understanding of human potential and societal structure. The 80% figure wasn't just a statistic. It represented the largest waste of human talent and creativity in recorded history. My research journey started with a simple but profound question. What separates the passionate 20% who wake up excited about their work from the 80% who live lives of quiet professional desperation? This investigation would consume the next several years of my life and ultimately lead to discoveries that challenged everything I thought I knew about career success and personal fulfillment. But here's what most people don't understand about this division between engaged and disengaged workers. It's not about intelligence, education, or even opportunity. Some of the most brilliant, highly educated, and well-positioned individuals I encountered were among the most miserable in their professional lives. The real secret isn't what you think, though. The difference between passionate workers and disengaged employees isn't found in their external circumstances, but in their internal compass. The 20% who love their work have developed something that the majority lacks: a clear understanding of what drives them and the courage to align their actions with those drivers. Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's groundbreaking research on flow states reveals why this distinction matters so profoundly. His studies at the University of Chicago demonstrate that people experience their highest levels of satisfaction, creativity, and performance when their work challenges align perfectly with their skills and values. This state of flow becomes virtually impossible when we're disconnected from our intrinsic motivations. The historical perspective illuminates how recent this problem truly is. Medieval craftsmen, despite facing significant hardships, typically experienced high levels of work satisfaction because they controlled their entire production process from raw materials to finished goods. They could see the direct impact of their efforts and take pride in their craftsmanship. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The Renaissance period produced an explosion of innovation and creativity precisely because individuals like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo and Galileo refused to separate their passions from their professions. They integrated their curiosity, artistic vision, and scientific inquiry into unified life purposes that transcended traditional career boundaries. The Industrial Revolution systematically dismantled this integration, creating what sociologist Émile Durkheim termed anomie, a condition of normlessness where individuals lose connection to meaningful social and personal values. This disconnection from purpose became the foundation of modern workplace alienation. But there's one crucial principle that changes everything about how we approach career satisfaction. The 80% problem isn't inevitable or permanent. It's a learned condition that can be unlearned through intentional practice and systematic self-discovery. Consider the case of a 31-year-old accountant who spent 7 years climbing the corporate ladder at a prestigious firm. Despite achieving every external marker of success, including partnership track and substantial income, she described her daily experience as soul-crushing monotony. Her work involved optimizing tax strategies for wealthy clients whose values she found morally questionable. This accountant's transformation began when she started volunteering to teach financial literacy in underserved communities. This experience revealed her true passion, helping people achieve financial independence and security. Within 18 months, she had transitioned to running a non-profit organization that provides financial education and microloans to aspiring entrepreneurs. Another compelling example involves a 26-year-old software developer who discovered that his technical skills could be applied to environmental conservation. His corporate job involved creating applications for fast fashion companies, an industry whose environmental impact deeply troubled him. By gradually transitioning his expertise toward clean energy optimization software, he found a way to align his technical abilities with his environmental values. The framework for understanding the 80% problem involves recognizing 3 systemic factors that create widespread disengagement. First, the myth of linear career progression, which assumes that moving up predetermined ladders automatically leads to increased satisfaction. Second, the external validation trap, where we measure success by others' expectations rather than our own fulfillment. Third, the security illusion, which prioritizes short-term financial comfort over long-term psychological well-being. The advanced strategy that separates those who escape the 80% from those who remain trapped involves developing what psychologists call intrinsic motivation. Research by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan demonstrates that humans have 3 fundamental psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Work that satisfies these needs naturally generates engagement and satisfaction. Autonomy involves having control over how, when, and why we work. Competence means engaging in activities that challenge our skills and allow for growth and mastery. Relatedness refers to feeling connected to something larger than ourselves, whether that's a team, mission, or community impact. The neuroscience research provides fascinating insights into why meaningful work affects us so profoundly. Dr. Antonio Damasio's studies on decision-making reveal that our brains are constantly evaluating whether our actions align with our core values and identity. When there's misalignment, we experience what he terms somatic markers, physical sensations of discomfort that signal something is wrong. This explains why so many successful professionals report feeling physically ill about their work, despite having no rational reason for dissatisfaction. Their bodies are literally rejecting the misalignment between their actions and their authentic selves. The case of a successful emergency room physician illustrates this phenomenon perfectly. She had achieved everything she thought she wanted: prestige, financial security, and the respect of her peers. However, she began experiencing panic attacks and insomnia that had no medical explanation. This physician's breakthrough came when she realized that her true passion lay in preventive medicine and health education rather than crisis intervention. The constant exposure to preventable diseases and lifestyle-related illnesses was creating a profound sense of futility that her body was expressing through stress symptoms. But the most powerful technique is still coming. The solution to the 80% problem doesn't require abandoning practical considerations or pursuing unrealistic dreams. It involves developing the skills to identify and create meaningful work within existing constraints and opportunities. The final piece that ties it all together involves understanding that the 80% problem represents both a personal challenge and a collective opportunity. When individuals discover and pursue their authentic work, they don't just improve their own lives, they contribute to solving problems and creating value in ways that only they can provide. Chapter 3: The 3 Pillars of Passionate Work. After interviewing hundreds of people who had successfully transitioned from career dissatisfaction to genuine professional fulfillment, I began to notice a pattern. Despite their diverse backgrounds, industries, and personal circumstances, they all shared 3 fundamental characteristics that seemed to be the foundation of their transformation. These weren't personality traits or lucky breaks. They were learnable skills and intentional practices that anyone could develop, regardless of their starting point or current situation. I began to think of them as the 3 pillars of passionate work, and understanding them would become the key to everything that followed. But here's what most people don't understand about these 3 pillars. They're not sequential steps or a linear progression. They work synergistically, each one reinforcing and amplifying the others. When you develop strength in all 3 areas, something magical happens. Work stops feeling like work and starts feeling like the natural expression of who you are. The real secret isn't what you think, though. These pillars aren't about finding the perfect job or discovering some hidden passion that's been waiting for you all along. They're about developing the internal capacity to create meaning and purpose within whatever circumstances you find yourself in. The first pillar is becoming a self-expert, developing a deep understanding of your unique strengths, values, and motivations. This isn't the superficial self-awareness that comes from personality tests or career assessments. It's the profound self-knowledge that emerges from systematic reflection and honest self-examination. The historical precedent for this kind of self-knowledge dates back to ancient Greece, where the maxim, "Know thyself," was inscribed at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. Socrates built his entire philosophical method around the premise that unexamined life is not worth living, and that true wisdom begins with understanding our own ignorance and limitations. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Modern neuroscience has validated what ancient philosophers intuited. Self-awareness is not a fixed trait, but a skill that can be developed through practice. Dr. Tasha Eurich's research at the University of Colorado demonstrates that people with high self-awareness are more confident, more creative, make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and communicate more effectively. The second pillar involves pushing your limits and expanding your sense of what's possible. This isn't about extreme sports or dramatic life changes. It's about systematically challenging the assumptions and beliefs that keep you trapped in limiting patterns of thought and behavior. The psychological research on growth mindset, pioneered by Dr. Carol Dweck at Stanford University, reveals that our beliefs about our own capabilities directly influence our actual performance. People who believe their abilities can be developed through effort and learning consistently outperform those who view their talents as fixed traits. But there's one crucial principle that changes everything about how we approach personal growth. The goal isn't to become someone different, it's to become more fully yourself. When you push your limits in alignment with your authentic nature, you don't just improve your performance, you discover capacities you never knew you possessed. The third pillar is surrounding yourself with passionate people who inspire and challenge you to become your best self. This isn't about networking or building professional connections. It's about creating an environment where excellence and authenticity are the norm rather than the exception. The social psychology research is unambiguous on this point. We become like the people we spend the most time with. Jim Rohn's famous observation that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with has been validated by numerous studies showing that behaviors, attitudes, and even health outcomes spread through social networks. Consider the case of a 29-year-old graphic designer who felt trapped in a corporate marketing department. Her colleagues were cynical about their work, constantly complaining about clients and counting down the hours until quitting time. This environment gradually eroded her own enthusiasm and creativity. This designer's transformation began when she started attending design meetups and connecting with freelancers and entrepreneurs who were passionate about their craft. Being around people who talked excitedly about their projects and constantly pushed creative boundaries reignited her own artistic ambitions. Within 6 months of changing her social environment, she had launched her own design consultancy specializing in sustainable brands. The shift in her peer group didn't just provide practical support and advice, it fundamentally altered her sense of what was possible and normal. Another compelling example involves a 35-year-old financial analyst who had always been interested in environmental issues but never saw a way to connect his analytical skills with his ecological concerns. His breakthrough came when he joined a hiking group that included several professionals working in clean energy and environmental consulting. Through these relationships, this analyst discovered the emerging field of environmental finance and impact investing. His new network provided both the knowledge and the confidence he needed to transition into a role where he could use his financial expertise to support renewable energy projects. The framework for developing these 3 pillars involves understanding that they're not destinations, but ongoing practices. Self-expertise requires continuous reflection and adjustment as you grow and change. Pushing limits demands regular challenges that stretch your comfort zone without overwhelming your capacity. Building passionate relationships needs intentional cultivation and maintenance. The advanced strategy that separates success from failure involves recognizing that these pillars support each other in powerful ways. Self-knowledge helps you identify which limits to push and which people to surround yourself with. Challenging yourself reveals new aspects of your identity and attracts like-minded individuals. Passionate relationships provide both the support and the accountability necessary for continued growth. But the most powerful technique is still coming. When you develop strength in all 3 pillars simultaneously, you create what I call a passion feedback loop, where each element reinforces the others in an upward spiral of growth and fulfillment. The final piece that ties it all together involves understanding that these 3 pillars aren't just about career success, they're about creating a life of meaning and impact. When you know yourself deeply, push your limits consistently, and surround yourself with passionate people, you don't just find better work, you become the kind of person who naturally creates value and makes a difference in the world. Chapter 4. Becoming a self-expert. The journey toward meaningful work begins with a paradox that most career advice completely ignores. We live in a culture obsessed with external achievement and comparison, yet the foundation of professional fulfillment lies in developing an intimate understanding of our internal landscape. Becoming a self-expert isn't about narcissistic self-absorption. It's about developing the clarity and confidence to make decisions that align with your authentic nature. Most people spend more time researching a television purchase than they do understanding their own strengths, values, and motivations. We're taught to look outward for validation and direction, constantly measuring ourselves against others' achievements and expectations. This external focus creates a fundamental disconnection from the internal compass that should guide our most important life decisions. But here's what most people don't understand about self-knowledge. It's not a destination you reach through introspection or personality assessments. It's an ongoing practice of paying attention to your responses, reactions, and patterns across different situations and contexts. True self-expertise emerges from the intersection of reflection and experience. The real secret isn't what you think, though. The goal isn't to discover some hidden passion that's been waiting for you all along. It's to develop the capacity to recognize and cultivate the activities, environments, and challenges that naturally energize and engage you. Dr. Marcus Buckingham's research on strengths reveals a crucial distinction that most people miss. Strengths aren't just things you're good at, they're activities that strengthen you. You can be skilled at something that drains your energy, just as you can be passionate about something you're still learning to master. The historical understanding of self-knowledge has evolved dramatically over centuries. Ancient Greek philosophy emphasized rational self-examination and the cultivation of virtue. Eastern traditions like Buddhism focus on understanding the nature of consciousness and the illusion of fixed identity. Modern psychology adds empirical methods for measuring personality traits, cognitive abilities, and behavioral patterns. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Contemporary neuroscience reveals that self-awareness involves multiple brain networks working together. The default mode network, responsible for self-referential thinking, must coordinate with the executive attention network, which manages focused awareness, and the salience network, which determines what deserves our attention. The framework for developing self-expertise involves 3 interconnected domains: strengths, values, and experiences. Each domain provides essential information for making career decisions that align with your authentic nature. Strengths discovery goes far beyond identifying what you're good at. It involves recognizing the activities that create what psychologists call flow states, where time seems to disappear and you feel fully absorbed in the task at hand. These are the activities that energize rather than drain you, even when they're challenging or demanding. Consider the case of a 32-year-old operations manager who discovered his true strength through an unexpected volunteer opportunity. While helping organize a charity fundraiser, he found himself naturally gravitating toward the logistics and coordination challenges. What surprised him wasn't that he was good at event planning, but how energized he felt by the complex problem-solving and team coordination involved. This experience led the operations manager to recognize that his strength lay not in operations management per se, but in creating systems that enable groups of people to work together effectively towards shared goals. This insight eventually guided his transition into organizational development consulting, where he could apply this strength in diverse contexts. Values clarification represents the second crucial domain of self-expertise. Values aren't abstract ideals or moral principles. They're the fundamental drivers that determine what feels meaningful and worthwhile to you. When your work aligns with your core values, you experience a sense of purpose and significance that transcends external rewards. The challenge is that most people have never systematically examined their values or distinguished between inherited expectations and authentic preferences. We often assume we value things like financial security or professional prestige without questioning whether these priorities truly reflect our deepest commitments. Another compelling example involves a 28-year-old lawyer who spent 3 years in corporate litigation before recognizing that her core value was justice, not legal expertise. Her work involved helping large corporations avoid accountability for environmental damage, which created a constant internal conflict that manifested as anxiety and insomnia. This lawyer's values clarification process revealed that she was motivated by fairness, environmental protection, and helping vulnerable populations. This understanding guided her transition to environmental law, where she could use her legal skills in service of causes she genuinely cared about. Experience integration forms the third domain of self-expertise. Every day provides data about what energizes and depletes you, what challenges excite and overwhelm you, what environments support and constrain your best work. Most people ignore this information or fail to synthesize it into actionable insights. The practice of experience integration involves regular reflection on your responses to different situations. What projects made you lose track of time? Which conversations left you feeling energized versus drained? What accomplishments felt genuinely satisfying versus hollow? But there's one crucial principle that changes everything about how you approach self-discovery. The goal isn't to find the perfect job that matches all your preferences. It's to develop the self-awareness necessary to create meaning and satisfaction within whatever circumstances you encounter. The advanced strategy that separates successful self-experts from those who remain confused involves understanding that self-knowledge is contextual and dynamic. Your strengths, values, and preferences evolve as you grow and change. What energized you 5 years ago might drain you today. and what seems impossible now might become your greatest passion tomorrow. The tools for developing self-expertise range from formal assessments like StrengthsFinder and Values in Action to simple practices like daily reflection and experience journaling. The key is consistency rather than perfection, paying attention rather than analyzing, and remaining curious rather than judgmental about what you discover. But the most powerful technique is still coming. The ultimate goal of becoming a self-expert isn't just personal clarity, it's developing the confidence to trust your internal guidance system even when it conflicts with external expectations or conventional wisdom. The final piece that ties it all together involves understanding that self-expertise is the foundation for all other aspects of meaningful work. When you know yourself deeply, you can make decisions that align with your authentic nature, push limits that matter to you, and attract relationships with people who appreciate and support your unique contributions. Chapter 5. Pushing your limits and redefining impossible. 3 years ago, I found myself sitting on a tugboat in San Francisco Bay, wearing a wetsuit and staring at the churning waters between Alcatraz and the mainland. My heart was pounding, my hands were shaking, and every rational part of my brain was screaming that I was about to make a terrible mistake. I have been terrified of deep, dark water ever since watching Jaws as a child, and now I was preparing to swim across one of the most challenging bodies of water in the world. This moment would teach me something profound about the relationship between fear, limitation, and possibility that would fundamentally change how I approached not just physical challenges, but every aspect of my professional and personal life. But here's what most people don't understand about pushing limits. It's not about becoming fearless or pursuing extreme challenges for their own sake. It's about systematically expanding your sense of what's possible by proving to yourself that the boundaries you've accepted are often more flexible than you imagined. The real secret isn't what you think, though. The most powerful limits to push aren't physical or external. They're the mental and emotional barriers that keep you trapped in patterns of thinking and behavior that no longer serve you. When you learn to challenge these internal limitations, you develop the confidence and resilience necessary to pursue meaningful work despite uncertainty and obstacles. Dr. Carol Dweck's groundbreaking research on mindset reveals why this practice is so transformative. People with a growth mindset, who believe their abilities can be developed through effort and learning, consistently outperform those with a fixed mindset who view their talents as static traits. More importantly, growth mindset individuals are more likely to take on challenges, persist through setbacks, and find meaning in the process of improvement. The historical precedent for limit pushing as a path to personal transformation spans cultures and centuries. Ancient Spartan education deliberately exposed young people to physical and mental challenges to develop resilience and character. Buddhist meditation practices involve confronting mental discomfort and resistance to cultivate equanimity and wisdom. Modern adventure therapy uses controlled risk and challenge to help people overcome trauma and build confidence. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The neuroscience of challenge and growth reveals that our brains are literally rewired by experiences that push us beyond our comfort zones. When we successfully navigate novel or difficult situations, we strengthen neural pathways associated with confidence, problem solving, and emotional regulation. The framework for effective limit pushing involves 3 essential principles: progressive challenge, aligned risk-taking, and systematic reflection. Progressive challenge means gradually increasing difficulty rather than attempting dramatic leaps that overwhelm your capacity. Aligned risk-taking involves choosing challenges that connect to your values and goals rather than pursuing arbitrary difficulties. Systematic reflection ensures that you extract maximum learning and confidence from each experience. Consider the case of a 34-year-old marketing manager who had always dreamed of starting her own business but felt paralyzed by the financial risks and uncertainty involved. Rather than quitting her job immediately to launch a startup, she began pushing her limits through smaller, manageable challenges. This marketing manager started by taking on freelance projects in her spare time, gradually building a client base and developing confidence in her ability to generate income independently. She then negotiated a part-time arrangement with her employer, reducing her financial dependence while increasing her entrepreneurial experience. Each step proved to herself that she was more capable and resourceful than she had previously believed. Within 18 months, she had successfully transitioned to full-time entrepreneurship, not through a dramatic leap of faith, but through a series of calculated challenges that systematically expanded her comfort zone and proved her capabilities. Another compelling example involves a 29-year-old software engineer who wanted to transition into product management but felt intimidated by the leadership and communication skills required. Instead of waiting until he felt ready, this engineer began volunteering to lead small projects within his current role. Each successful project leadership experience built his confidence and demonstrated his potential to both himself and his colleagues. When a product management position opened at his company, he had already proven his capabilities through real-world challenges rather than theoretical preparation. The advanced strategy that separates effective limit pushing from reckless risk-taking involves understanding the difference between productive discomfort and overwhelming stress. Productive discomfort occurs when you're challenged, but still within your zone of proximal development, the space where learning and growth are possible. Overwhelming stress happens when challenges exceed your current capacity to cope and adapt. Physical challenges often provide the most accessible entry point for limit pushing because they offer immediate, measurable feedback and clear progression markers. When you prove to yourself that you can run farther, lift more, or endure longer than you previously thought possible, this confidence transfers to other areas of your life. The case of my own swimming experience illustrates this principle perfectly. As I sat on that tugboat, my friend Jonathan offered perspective that completely reframed the challenge. He pointed out that I was wearing a wetsuit, surrounded by safety kayaks, and swimming with 80 other people, including 65 children between the ages of 9 and 13. This reframing helped me recognize that my fear was based on imagined dangers rather than actual risks. When I completed the swim, the confidence boost extended far beyond aquatic activities. I had proven to myself that I could face my deepest fears and succeed, which gave me courage to take professional and personal risks that I had previously avoided. But there's one crucial principle that changes everything about how you approach limit pushing. The goal isn't to eliminate fear or discomfort, it's to develop a different relationship with these experiences. Instead of viewing fear as a stop sign, you learn to see it as information about what matters to you and where growth opportunities exist. The most powerful limit-pushing experiences often involve confronting the stories you tell yourself about what you can and cannot do. These limiting beliefs, often formed in childhood or reinforced by past failures, create invisible barriers that constrain your choices and actions long after the original circumstances have changed. But the most powerful technique is still coming. The ultimate goal of pushing your limits isn't just personal growth or increased confidence. It's developing the resilience and adaptability necessary to pursue meaningful work in an uncertain and rapidly changing world. The final piece that ties it all together involves understanding that limit pushing is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing practice. Each challenge you overcome expands your sense of possibility and prepares you for the next level of growth and contribution. When you make pushing limits a regular part of your life, you develop the confidence to pursue work that truly matters, even when the path is unclear or unconventional. Chapter 6: The Power of Passionate People. For 4 years, I poured my heart and soul into building what would eventually become Live Your Legend, a movement dedicated to helping people find work they genuinely cared about. Despite my best efforts, unwavering commitment, and countless hours of work, the community grew at exactly 0%. 3 people paid attention to what I was creating: my mother, my father, and my wife. I was on the verge of shutting down the entire project when something happened that would change everything. I moved to San Francisco and began meeting people who lived completely different lives than anyone I had previously encountered. These individuals had built businesses around their passions, created location-independent careers, and designed lifestyles that integrated their values with their work in ways I had never imagined possible. But here's what most people don't understand about the transformative power of environment and relationships. It's not just about networking or finding mentors. though those elements matter. It's about surrounding yourself with people whose normal is what you aspire to become, whose everyday reality expands your sense of what's possible. The real secret isn't what you think, though. The people around you don't just influence your actions and decisions, they literally reshape your brain through a process neuroscientists call social neuroplasticity. Mirror neurons fire both when you perform an action and when you observe others performing the same action, creating unconscious learning and behavioral modeling. Jim Rohn's famous observation that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with has been validated by extensive research in social psychology and behavioral economics. The Framingham Heart Study, which followed thousands of participants over several decades, demonstrated that behaviors like obesity, smoking, and happiness spread through social networks in measurable, predictable patterns. The historical understanding of social influence on personal development spans cultures and centuries. Aristotle wrote extensively about the importance of choosing virtuous friends who would inspire excellence and moral development. Confucian philosophy emphasizes the role of exemplary individuals in cultivating character and wisdom. Indigenous cultures worldwide have traditionally used mentorship and community modeling to transmit skills, values, and ways of being. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The mechanism through which social environment influences personal transformation operates at both conscious and unconscious levels. Consciously, you gain access to new information, opportunities, and perspectives. Unconsciously, your brain adapts to the behavioral norms and expectations of your social group. The framework for leveraging social influence involves 3 strategic elements: proximity, diversity, and intentionality. Proximity means spending significant time with people whose lives and work inspire you. Diversity ensures exposure to different perspectives, approaches, and possibilities. Intentionality involves consciously choosing your social environment rather than passively accepting whatever relationships happen to exist. Consider the case of a 31-year-old graphic designer who felt trapped in a corporate marketing department where creativity was discouraged and innovation was viewed with suspicion. Her colleagues were cynical about their work, constantly complaining about clients and management, and counting down the hours until they could leave each day. This designer's transformation began when she started attending design meetups and connecting with freelancers, entrepreneurs, and creative professionals who approached their work with passion and excitement. Being around people who talked enthusiastically about their projects, shared resources and opportunities, and constantly pushed creative boundaries gradually shifted her own perspective and aspirations. Within 6 months of changing her social environment, she had launched her own design consultancy, specializing in sustainable brands. The shift in her peer group didn't just provide practical support and advice. It fundamentally altered her sense of what was normal and achievable. Another compelling example involves a 27-year-old financial analyst who had always been interested in environmental issues but never saw a way to connect his analytical skills with his ecological concerns. His breakthrough came when he joined a hiking group that included several professionals working in clean energy, environmental consulting, and impact investing. Through these relationships, this analyst discovered the emerging field of environmental finance and learned about career paths he had never known existed. His new network provided both the knowledge and the confidence he needed to transition into a role where he could use his financial expertise to support renewable energy projects. The advanced strategy that separates successful relationship building from superficial networking involves understanding the difference between transactional and transformational connections. Transactional relationships focus on immediate exchanges of value or information. Transformational relationships involve mutual growth, shared learning, and authentic connection around common values and aspirations. The quality of relationships matters more than quantity. A few deep connections with people who genuinely inspire and challenge you will have far greater impact than numerous superficial professional contacts. The goal is to find your tribe, the community of people who share your values, support your growth, and normalize the kind of life and work you want to create. But there's one crucial principle that changes everything about how you approach relationship building. The most powerful connections often emerge from shared activities and experiences rather than formal networking events or professional associations. When you engage in activities you genuinely enjoy with people who share your interests, authentic relationships develop naturally. The case of my own transformation illustrates this principle perfectly. After 4 years of zero growth, within 6 months of moving to San Francisco and connecting with passionate entrepreneurs and creators, Live Your Legend grew by 1,000%. In the following 12 months, it expanded by 16,000%, eventually reaching over 30,000 people from 158 countries. This dramatic change wasn't due to new strategies or improved content. It was the direct result of being around people for whom building meaningful, impactful businesses was normal rather than exceptional. Their everyday reality became my new standard, shifting my thinking from, "How could I possibly do this?" to, "How could I possibly not?" The neuroscience research explains why this environmental shift was so powerful. When you're consistently exposed to people who embody the qualities and achievements you aspire to, your brain begins to wire itself for similar patterns of thinking and behavior. What seemed impossible becomes conceivable, then achievable, then inevitable. But the most powerful technique is still coming. The ultimate goal of surrounding yourself with passionate people isn't just personal inspiration or professional advancement. It's contributing to a community of individuals who are collectively working to solve problems and create positive change in the world. The final piece that ties it all together involves understanding that the relationship between environment and achievement is bidirectional. As you grow and develop through exposure to inspiring people, you become the kind of person who inspires others. The community that supports your transformation becomes the community you help to build and strengthen for future generations. Chapter 7. From Insight to Action. Understanding the 3 pillars of passionate work represents only the beginning of your transformation journey. The gap between knowing what you should do and actually doing it consistently is where most people get stuck. This chapter bridges that gap by providing practical frameworks for translating insights into sustainable action, even when you're starting from a position of uncertainty or constraint. The transition from employee mindset to entrepreneur mindset, from security-focused to purpose-driven thinking, from external validation to internal compass navigation requires more than intellectual understanding. It demands a systematic approach to behavior change that accounts for the psychological, social, and practical obstacles that inevitably arise. But here's what most people don't understand about sustainable transformation. The goal isn't to make dramatic changes overnight, or to abandon all practical considerations in pursuit of your dreams. It's to create a series of small strategic shifts that gradually align your daily actions with your deeper values and aspirations. The real secret isn't what you think, though. The most effective approach to career transformation involves what psychologists call implementation intentions, specific plans that link situational cues to desired behaviors. Instead of vague goals like find more meaningful work, you create concrete action steps like spend 30 minutes every Tuesday evening researching companies whose missions align with my values. Dr. Peter Gollweitzer's research at New York University demonstrates that people who create implementation intentions are 2 to 3 times more likely to achieve their goals compared to those who rely on motivation and willpower alone. The key is specificity. When X happens, I will do Y. The historical precedent for systematic personal transformation can be traced through various philosophical and spiritual traditions. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius developed daily practices for aligning actions with principles. Buddhist meditation traditions emphasize gradual cultivation of awareness and compassion through consistent practice. Modern cognitive behavioral therapy applies similar principles to changing thought patterns and behaviors. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The neuroscience of habit formation reveals that sustainable change occurs through repetition and environmental design rather than motivation and willpower. When you consistently perform new behaviors in specific contexts, your brain creates neural pathways that make these actions increasingly automatic and effortless. The framework for effective implementation involves 3 interconnected strategies: experimentation, iteration, and integration. Experimentation means trying new approaches without committing to permanent changes. Iteration involves refining and adjusting based on what you learn from each experiment. Integration focuses on incorporating successful experiments into your regular routines and identity. Consider the case of a 33-year-old marketing manager who wanted to transition into non-profit work but felt overwhelmed by the financial and practical challenges involved. Rather than quitting her job immediately, she began experimenting with volunteer opportunities that allowed her to explore different aspects of non-profit work. This marketing manager started by volunteering 2 hours per week at a local food bank, then expanded to helping with grant writing for an environmental organization. Each experiment provided valuable information about what energized her and what skills she needed to develop. After 18 months of systematic experimentation, she had built enough experience and network connections to transition confidently into a full-time, non-profit role. Another compelling example involves a 29-year-old software engineer who dreamed of becoming a freelance consultant, but worried about the uncertainty and isolation of independent work. He began by taking on small freelance projects during evenings and weekends, gradually building both his skills and his client base. This engineer's approach involved careful iteration based on each project's outcomes. He refined his pricing strategy, improved his communication processes, and identified the types of clients and projects that best matched his strengths and interests. When he finally transitioned to full-time freelancing, he had already proven his ability to generate consistent income and manage the challenges of independent work. The advanced strategy that separates successful implementers from those who remain stuck in planning mode involves understanding the difference between perfectionist paralysis and strategic preparation. Perfectionist paralysis occurs when you delay action until you have complete information or ideal conditions. Strategic preparation involves gathering enough information to take intelligent risks while accepting that uncertainty is inevitable. The concept of minimum viable experiments borrowed from startup methodology provides a powerful framework for career transformation. Instead of waiting until you're ready to make major changes, you design small experiments that test your assumptions and provide real-world feedback with minimal risk. These experiments might include informational interviews with people in your target field, volunteer work that develops relevant skills, side projects that explore new interests, or temporary assignments that expose you to different work environments. Each experiment generates data that informs your next steps while building confidence and competence. But there's one crucial principle that changes everything about how you approach implementation. The goal isn't to eliminate uncertainty or guarantee success. It's to develop the skills and resilience necessary to navigate uncertainty effectively while staying aligned with your values and aspirations. The psychological research on resilience reveals that people who successfully navigate major life transitions share certain characteristics. They view challenges as opportunities for growth, they maintain optimism about their ability to influence outcomes, and they seek support from others who share their values and goals. The case of my own career transition illustrates these principles in action. When I left my Fortune 500 job, I didn't have a clear plan or guaranteed income. What I had was a commitment to experimentation, a willingness to learn from failure, and a growing network of people who were creating unconventional but meaningful careers. My early experiments included starting a blog, attending entrepreneurship meetups, interviewing people whose work inspired me, and gradually building what would become Live Your Legend. Each experiment taught me something valuable about my interests, abilities, and the possibilities available in the emerging economy. The integration phase involves incorporating successful experiments into your identity and daily routines. This isn't just about changing what you do, it's about changing how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. When you consistently act in alignment with your values and aspirations, you gradually become the kind of person who naturally creates meaningful work. But the most powerful technique is still coming. The ultimate goal of systematic implementation isn't just personal career satisfaction, it's developing the capacity to create value and solve problems in ways that only you can provide. The final piece that ties it all together involves understanding that implementation is an ongoing process rather than a destination. As you grow and change, your understanding of meaningful work will evolve, requiring continuous experimentation and adjustment. The skills you develop in navigating one transition prepare you for future changes and challenges throughout your career. Chapter 8: Overcoming the Inevitable Obstacles. Every transformation journey encounters predictable obstacles that can derail progress if you're not prepared to navigate them effectively. These challenges aren't signs that you're on the wrong path or that meaningful work isn't possible for you. They're natural parts of the growth process that, when understood and addressed strategically, actually strengthen your resolve and accelerate your progress. The most common obstacle people face when pursuing meaningful work is what I call the security trap. This involves the fear of giving up financial stability, health insurance, or social status in pursuit of something uncertain and unconventional. The security trap is particularly powerful because it's often reinforced by well-meaning family members, friends, and colleagues who genuinely care about your welfare. But here's what most people don't understand about the security trap. The perceived security of traditional employment is largely an illusion in today's rapidly changing economy. Corporate layoffs, industry disruption, and economic volatility mean that no job is truly secure. The real security comes from developing skills, relationships, and resilience that allow you to create value regardless of external circumstances. The real secret isn't what you think, though. The goal isn't to eliminate financial considerations or ignore practical constraints. It's to make decisions based on accurate risk assessment rather than fear-based assumptions about what's safe and what's dangerous. Dr. Daniel Kahneman's research on cognitive biases reveals that humans systematically overestimate the risks of unfamiliar situations while underestimating the risks of familiar ones. This availability heuristic causes people to fear entrepreneurship or career changes while ignoring the substantial risks of remaining in unfulfilling work, including stress-related health problems, missed opportunities for growth, and the long-term psychological costs of living inauthentically. The historical perspective on security and risk reveals how dramatically these concepts have changed over time. For most of human history, security came from community relationships, diverse skills, and adaptability rather than dependence on large institutions. The idea that employment with a single organization could provide lifelong security is a relatively recent invention that's already becoming obsolete. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The people who successfully navigate career transitions often discover that their fears about financial insecurity were largely unfounded. When you're doing work that aligns with your strengths and passions, you typically perform at a higher level, create more value, and attract better opportunities than when you're merely going through the motions in a job you don't care about. The framework for overcoming the security trap involves 3 strategic approaches: gradual transition, skill development, and financial preparation. Gradual transition means making incremental changes rather than dramatic leaps, allowing you to test new directions while maintaining some stability. Skill development focuses on building capabilities that increase your value and options in the marketplace. Financial preparation involves creating emergency funds and reducing expenses to provide a buffer during transition periods. Consider the case of a 36-year-old corporate lawyer who wanted to start a social justice nonprofit but felt trapped by her substantial student loans and mortgage payments. Rather than quitting immediately, she began by reducing her expenses, taking on pro bono cases that aligned with her values, and gradually building relationships in the non-profit sector. This lawyer's transition took 3 years, during which she systematically addressed each practical obstacle while building the experience and network necessary for her new career. When she finally launched her non-profit, she had not only overcome the financial barriers, but had also developed the skills and credibility necessary for success in her new field. Another common obstacle is what psychologists call imposter syndrome, the persistent feeling that you're not qualified or deserving of the opportunities you're pursuing. This is particularly challenging when transitioning to new fields or taking on leadership roles that stretch your current capabilities. The case of a 28-year-old graphic designer who wanted to become a creative director illustrates how imposter syndrome can be both an obstacle and a growth opportunity. Despite having strong technical skills and creative vision, he felt intimidated by the leadership and strategic thinking required for director-level roles. This designer's breakthrough came when he reframed imposter syndrome as evidence that he was pushing himself into new territory rather than staying safely within his existing competence zone. He began seeking out mentorship, taking on leadership responsibilities in volunteer projects, and gradually building the confidence and skills necessary for his target role. The advanced strategy that separates those who overcome obstacles from those who remain stuck involves understanding the difference between legitimate concerns and limiting beliefs. Legitimate concerns are based on accurate information and can be addressed through planning and skill development. Limiting beliefs are based on assumptions and fears that may not reflect current reality. The practice of fear setting, developed by entrepreneur Tim Ferriss, provides a systematic approach to evaluating risks and obstacles. Instead of avoiding difficult decisions due to vague fears, you specifically identify what could go wrong, assess the likelihood and impact of negative outcomes, and develop contingency plans for addressing potential problems. But there's one crucial principle that changes everything about how you approach obstacles. The goal isn't to eliminate all risks or guarantee success. It's to develop the resilience and problem-solving skills necessary to navigate uncertainty while staying aligned with your values and aspirations. The social obstacles often prove more challenging than practical ones. Family members who don't understand your choices, colleagues who question your decisions, and friends who feel threatened by your growth can create significant emotional pressure to conform to conventional expectations. The framework for managing social obstacles involves 3 key strategies: selective sharing, boundary setting, and community building. Selective sharing means being strategic about who you discuss your plans with, focusing on people who are likely to be supportive rather than seeking universal approval. Boundary setting involves protecting your energy and confidence from negative influences. Community building focuses on connecting with people who share your values and support your growth. The case of a 32-year-old teacher who wanted to become a freelance educational consultant illustrates the importance of managing social obstacles. Her family was deeply concerned about her leaving the security of a teaching position, and their constant worry and criticism began to undermine her confidence. This teacher's solution involved limiting discussions about her career plans with family members while actively seeking support from other educators who had made similar transitions. She joined online communities, attended professional development events, and gradually built a network of people who understood and encouraged her goals. But the most powerful technique is still coming. The ultimate approach to overcoming obstacles involves viewing them as essential parts of your growth process rather than problems to be avoided. Each challenge you successfully navigate builds resilience, confidence, and problem-solving skills that prepare you for future opportunities and difficulties. The final piece that ties it all together involves understanding that obstacles often contain valuable information about what matters most to you. When you're willing to face significant challenges in pursuit of meaningful work, you demonstrate to yourself and others the depth of your commitment and the authenticity of your aspirations. Chapter 9. Creating a world where 80% love their work. As I stand here today, reflecting on the journey from that soul-crushing corporate cubicle to building a movement that has reached over 30,000 people across 158 countries, I'm struck by a profound realization. The transformation I experienced wasn't just personal. It was part of a larger shift that's happening across the globe as people wake up to new possibilities for work and life. We're living through what I believe is the most exciting time in human history to create meaningful work. The barriers that once prevented people from pursuing their passions, the gatekeepers who controlled access to opportunities, and the geographic limitations that constrained career options are rapidly disappearing. For the first time ever, ordinary people have the tools and freedom to build extraordinary careers around what they care about most. But here's what most people don't understand about this historical moment. The opportunity isn't just individual, it's collective. When passionate people pursue work they love, They don't just improve their own lives. They solve problems, create innovations, and generate value in ways that benefit everyone. The shift from a workforce of disengaged employees to a community of passionate creators has the potential to address some of humanity's greatest challenges. The real secret isn't what you think, though. This transformation won't happen automatically or through individual effort alone. It requires intentional community building, systematic support for people making transitions, and cultural changes that normalize pursuing meaningful work over traditional security. Recent economic data suggests this shift is already beginning. For the first time in recorded history, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics reported a month where more people quit their jobs than were laid off. This wasn't an anomaly. It happened for 3 consecutive months, indicating a fundamental change in how people think about work and career. The historical precedent for this kind of cultural transformation can be found in previous economic and social revolutions. The shift from agricultural to industrial society fundamentally changed how people thought about work, community, and success. The current transition from industrial to information-based economy is creating similar opportunities for reimagining the relationship between work and life. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The technology that enables location independence, the platforms that allow direct access to global markets, and the tools that make entrepreneurship accessible to ordinary people are all relatively recent developments. We're still in the early stages of understanding and utilizing these capabilities. The framework for accelerating this transformation involves 3 interconnected strategies: individual development, community building, and cultural change. Individual development means helping people develop the self-awareness, skills, and confidence necessary to pursue meaningful work. Community building focuses on creating support networks that normalize and facilitate career transitions. Cultural change involves shifting societal narratives about success, security, and the purpose of work. Consider the ripple effects when an accountant transitions from corporate work to financial literacy education. She doesn't just improve her own life, she helps hundreds of people achieve financial independence, creates jobs for other educators and counselors, and contributes to reducing economic inequality in her community. Or think about a software developer who moved from fast fashion applications to clean energy optimization. His career change contributes to environmental sustainability, advances renewable energy technology, and demonstrates to other technical professionals that they can align their skills with their values. These individual transformations, multiplied across millions of people, have the potential to address systemic problems that seem intractable when approached through traditional institutional channels. Climate change, economic inequality, social isolation, and mental health challenges all benefit when passionate people direct their talents towards solutions rather than just earning paychecks. The advanced strategy that separates sustainable change from temporary trends involves understanding that meaningful work isn't a luxury for the privileged few. It's a necessity for creating a thriving society. When people are engaged in work that utilizes their strengths and aligns with their values, they're more creative, productive, and resilient. The economic implications are staggering. Gallup's research indicates that engaged employees are 31% more productive, have 37% better sales performance, and are 3 times more likely to be innovative compared to their disengaged counterparts. Scaling these improvements across the entire workforce would generate trillions of dollars in additional economic value while simultaneously improving quality of life for millions of people. But there's one crucial principle that changes everything about how we approach this transformation. The goal isn't to convince everyone to become entrepreneurs or abandon traditional employment. It's to help people find ways to create meaning and impact within whatever context they choose. Whether that's starting a business, working for a mission-driven organization, or bringing passion and purpose to conventional roles. The case of an emergency room physician illustrates this principle perfectly. She could have viewed her work as simply treating patients and earning income. Instead, she began documenting the social and economic factors that contributed to the health crises she witnessed daily. Her research led to policy recommendations that improved community health outcomes and influenced healthcare delivery across her region. This physician didn't change careers. She expanded her impact by connecting her daily work to larger purposes and systemic solutions. This approach is available to people in virtually any profession or role. The community building aspect of this transformation involves creating what I call passion ecosystems, networks of people who support each other's growth and celebrate the unconventional success. These communities provide practical resources, emotional support, and social proof that meaningful work is possible and normal. Live Your Legend represents one example of such a community, but similar networks are emerging in every field and geographic region. Online platforms make it possible to connect with like-minded people regardless of location, while local meetups and events provide face-to-face support and collaboration opportunities. The cultural change component requires shifting narratives about success, risk, and the purpose of work. Instead of measuring success primarily through income and status, we need metrics that account for impact, fulfillment, and contribution to community well-being. Instead of viewing career changes as risky, we need to recognize that staying in unfulfilling work is often the riskier choice. But the most powerful technique is still coming. The ultimate vision for this transformation involves creating a world where the question, "What do you do?" is met with excitement and passion rather than resignation and complaint. Imagine the innovation, creativity, and problem-solving capacity that would be unleashed if 80% of people loved their work instead of merely tolerating it. This isn't a utopian fantasy. It's an achievable goal that requires individual courage, community support, and cultural evolution. Every person who chooses to pursue meaningful work, every community that supports career transitions, and every organization that prioritizes purpose alongside profit contributes to this larger transformation. The final piece that ties it all together involves understanding that this movement starts with you. The work you can't not do, the contribution only you can make, the problems you're uniquely positioned to solve, these aren't just personal opportunities. They're your responsibility to the larger human community. As Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Everything was impossible until somebody did it. The shift from a world where 80% of people hate their work to one where 80% love their work will happen. One person, one decision, one courageous choice at a time. Your transformation doesn't just change your life, it changes the world. The question isn't whether meaningful work is possible, it's whether you're ready to discover and pursue the work you can't not do. The world is waiting for your unique contribution. What are you waiting for?